Am I doing too much? No. No, sometimes I wonder, am I doing enough? Okay, I'm ready for my...
It's fair to say that almost no one can stand the star of this movie anymore. Rachel Ziegler has managed to alienate both audiences and the industry in record time. She isn't just outspoken or confident. She's performatively woke in a way that feels more self-righteous than sincere. Her public comments, interviews, and online behavior have made her a lightning rod for controversy. Not because she's fighting for equality, but because she often does so with an air of hostility and superiority that turns people off instantly. There's a fine line between being passionate and being insufferable, and Zegler has crossed it repeatedly. Her infamous attitude was on full display when she snapped at a fan, saying that some privileged white guy thinks his opinion matters. Get over your entitlement. I'm not some damsel in distress waiting for you to ride in on your high horse. The irony is almost cinematic. She's playing Snow White, one of the most beloved and gentle fairy tale characters in Disney history, yet she delivers every public appearance as if she's scolding the world for existing. That disconnect between character and personality has become the defining problem of this film's marketing campaign. What should have been a moment of charm, magic, and nostalgia has instead turned into an exhausting lecture on feminism, privilege, and identity politics. Even the production choices surrounding the remake have fueled backlash. Disney decided to remove the 7 dwarfs entirely, replacing them with a group of magical creatures, leaving only one actual dwarf among them. What was meant to be an act of modern inclusivity backfired spectacularly. Members of the dwarfism community called the move offensive and regressive. By trying to correct perceived stereotypes, Disney ended up erasing visibility for actors with dwarfism altogether. Actor Peter Dinklage, whose comments partly inspired the studio's change, has even been criticized for helping create this problem. People argued that his personal discomfort shouldn't have dictated representation for an entire group. As one critic put it, if the story is offensive, rewrite the story, don't erase the characters. Meanwhile, Rachel Ziegler didn't help matters. She doubled down on her beliefs, often lashing out at critics. In one interview, she said, "If you disagree with me, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business." The problem is, she does. Or at least Disney does. She's the face of a billion-dollar franchise, and her words have real consequences. Fans don't expect their favorite princess to be humble and submissive, but they do expect her to be likable. Instead, Ziegler came across as arrogant, ungrateful, and detached from the audience she was supposed to enchant. At one point, she went viral for complaining about her pay, saying, "I deserve to be paid for every hour this film is streamed online." That remark cemented her image as entitled and out of touch, especially in a time when audiences are already skeptical of Hollywood's elitism. Commentators and fellow actors alike have called her unstable, saying she mistakes bitterness for empowerment. For many, she's become a symbol of what happens when Hollywood tries to lecture rather than entertain, when storytelling turns into activism and humility disappears behind a brand of self-importance. The result? Audiences are walking away. Reports from early screenings showed theaters nearly empty. Viral TikToks show people entering showings of Snow White to find only 1 or 2 viewers scattered across the seats. The optics are brutal. A film that was supposed to represent a new generation of empowerment has instead become a symbol of alienation. One viral clip even showed Rachel Zegler sitting alone in a theater watching herself on screen, accompanied by sad background music. It's the kind of moment you couldn't script, a visual metaphor for the collapse of a once promising career. Zegler, for her part, has tried to position herself as misunderstood. In one speech, she compared herself to the winged victory statue at the Louvre, saying, "People still line up to see her, even though she's in pieces. I can only hope that, despite my flaws and my cracks, people will wait in line to see me." But it was an attempt at poetic vulnerability. But for many, it only reinforced the perception that she sees herself as a martyr. Now, the backlash has reached a surreal level. Even The Simpsons, famous for parodying pop culture disasters, is reportedly preparing an episode roasting her, a sign that she's officially become a cultural punchline. What was meant to be Disney's next major live-action success has instead spiraled into a PR nightmare. At its core, this entire saga serves as a warning, not just about one actress's downfall, but about Hollywood's growing disconnect from its audience. The film industry has forgotten that people go to the movies to feel something, to laugh, to dream, to believe, not to be lectured or scolded. Rachel Ziegler could have been Disney's next timeless princess, but instead, she's become the face of a fairy tale gone wrong. A reminder that charm can't be forced, empathy can't be faked, and arrogance can turn even the brightest opportunity into a cautionary tale. It's not subtle, it's not symbolic, it's brutal. The upcoming Simpsons episode isn't pulling any punches. It's going straight for the jugular. The parody film within the episode, Snow Woke. The reimagining is exactly what it sounds, like a razor-sharp takedown of modern Hollywood's obsession with rewriting classics under the banner of progress. But the real sting isn't in the script, it's in the timing. As Rachel Ziegler continues to face headlines, fan outrage, and a career hanging by a thread, becoming the butt of a Simpsons joke is the last thing she needed. Insiders say she's not laughing. The parody paints her as tone-deaf, self-important, and completely out of touch with reality, a caricature of how audiences already see her. Social media lit up instantly. Oh wow, one viral comment read, "Snow White flopped. Who's surprised? You cast arguably the least genuine, most disliked person in Hollywood." And that's saying something. Everything critics have been saying for months has now been immortalized in satire. For Rachel, who's been desperately trying to climb out from under the avalanche of bad press, being lampooned by one of television's most iconic shows is a public humiliation of the highest order. The timing couldn't be worse. Ziegler's troubles with Disney have been growing behind the scenes for months. Reports surfaced that she was quietly dropped from several upcoming projects, including voiceover work connected to the Toy Story franchise. To understand how this all unraveled, you have to rewind to what was once a real-life Cinderella story in the making. Rachel Zegler was supposed to be Hollywood's next breakout star, after earning critical acclaim for her performance in West. Side story, she was chosen to lead one of Disney's most iconic properties, Snow White. It should have been her crowning moment, her ascent into the A-list. Instead, it marked the beginning of a spectacular public collapse. From the start, the controversy wasn't about the film's quality, it was about Rachel herself. In interviews meant to promote Snow White, she veered off script, focusing less on the magic and legacy of the character and more on criticizing the 1937 original. "It's no longer 1937, she said in one clip that went viral. She's not dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be." To some, it was empowering. To others, it was insulting. Then came the line that detonated the internet. Zegler called the original prince a stalker and dismissed the story as weird and outdated. Fans were furious. It wasn't just a new take, it felt like she was mocking the film that built the foundation of Disney's entire fairy tale legacy. The backlash was immediate and ferocious. Memes exploded. Commentators accused her of hypocrisy, cashing a Disney paycheck while tearing down Disney's own classics. And every attempt she made to clarify only seemed to dig the hole deeper. Online creators began parodying her comments, and even other celebrities started to distance themselves. One viral streamer sarcastically reviewed Snow White, saying, "Chat, this movie has everything. Horrifying CGI little people, a feminist princess who don't need no man, and a dance party at the end. Go see the new one, not that old stupid one where the princess gets saved by some good guy." The sarcasm was cutting and the internet ate it up. Soon, Weiss girl boss Snow White started trending, not as praise, but as mockery. Every interview, every red carpet quote, every soundbite became ammunition. What should have been a triumphant press tour turned into a PR disaster reel. Even her interactions with co-star Gal Gadot raised eyebrows. During the awards season circuit, fans noted the visible awkwardness between them. Stiff smiles, distant body language, and near silence on stage. Their joint appearance at the Oscars became a viral clip for all the wrong reasons. "Please welcome Rachel Ziegler and Gal Gadot," the announcer said, but the chemistry was non-existent. They read their lines, introduced the nominees for Best Visual Effects, and left the stage in frosty silence. Rumors quickly spread that Gadot had chosen to distance herself from Zegler behind the scenes. Insiders whispered that Disney was growing uneasy too, unsure how to manage the fallout without drawing even more attention to it. Yet, the studio stayed quiet. No public statements, no PR pivots, no damage control. Just silence. The kind that says more than words ever could. More than words ever could.
Farted. and it was good because it kind of The tension was gone.
As the weeks passed, Snow White transformed from a highly anticipated blockbuster into a cautionary tale of self-inflicted ruin. Zegler's attempts to frame her comments as feminist empowerment only deepened the divide between her and the audience. Disney's silence, combined with the relentless wave of online mockery, left her isolated and exposed. Now, with The Simpsons ready to immortalize her downfall in cartoon form, it feels like the final nail in the coffin of what was once a fairy tale career. For Rachel Zegler, who began as Hollywood's next big hope, the transformation has been complete, from rising star to industry cautionary tale. And the irony is brutal. The actress who wanted to redefine Snow White has instead rewritten her own story, turning it from a dream come true into a modern-day tragedy of pride, backlash, and the high cost of losing the audience's trust. But even beyond the headlines, the film itself wasn't connecting with audiences. The heart of the original story, its charm, its simplicity, its fairy tale warmth, was gone. So were the Seven Dwarfs, replaced by a vague group of magical creatures. The prince was written out, his role reduced to a footnote. What remained was a politically reworked version of Snow White that many longtime Disney fans barely recognized. It wasn't just a remake, it felt like a reinvention of the story's DNA and not in a way that resonated. Was this even Snow White anymore? That question, which started as a rhetorical jab online, soon became the rallying cry of the backlash. The studio's messaging only deepened the confusion. Rachel Ziegler herself tried to redefine the meaning of the name Snow White. She doesn't get her name from the fairness of her skin, she said in one interview. She gets it from surviving a snowstorm. The real meaning of fairness is about kindness. It's about your heart and how you treat others. It was an attempt to modernize the story's moral, to separate it from old-fashioned beauty standards. But to many fans, it sounded like rewriting history, an unnecessary overcorrection that stripped away the timeless qualities of the tale. When the movie finally hit theaters, the numbers spoke volumes. Despite Disney's massive marketing push and the cultural weight of the Snow White brand, audiences simply didn't show up. The film debuted to lukewarm box office returns, its opening weekend described by analysts as disastrously soft. Critics were divided, but not kind. Some praised the ambition, but most lamented the loss of heart, calling it joyless, overly self-aware, and thematically confused. Within weeks, it had become one of Disney's most polarizing releases ever. Then came the online reaction. Swift, brutal, and unforgiving. Social media turned the film's failure into entertainment in itself. Memes mocked its dialogue, its tone, its CGI, and especially Ziegler's performance. Reddit threads with titles like "How Not to Market a Movie" and "The Fall of Snow White" trended for days. On IMDb, the film plummeted to a shocking 1.6 rating, one of the lowest in Disney's entire catalog. It wasn't just a commercial failure, it was a cultural one. Fans weren't just skipping the movie, they were celebrating its downfall. For Rachel Zegler, the fallout was devastating. Once hailed as Hollywood's next golden girl after West Side Story, she now found herself synonymous with overreach and controversy. What should have been her defining role became a symbol of misjudged modernism and fractured fandom. Online, the narrative snowballed, and in today's digital age, perception is reality. Then came a bizarre twist that blurred the line between scandal and satire. A fake OnlyFans account appeared online using AI-generated images of Rachel Ziegler. It wasn't real, but that didn't matter. It went viral almost instantly, racking up thousands of followers who joked about it, shared screenshots, and even debated whether it might actually be her. Zegler had absolutely nothing to do with it, yet the fact that so many people believed it, or wanted to, said everything about how drastically her image had changed. A year earlier, the idea of such a rumor would have seemed absurd. Now, it felt disturbingly plausible. That's how far things had unraveled. In Hollywood, where image is currency, Rachel's value had plummeted. Insiders whispered that her name had quietly disappeared from casting lists. Roles she'd been attached to went unconfirmed or mysteriously recast. Projects she'd once been considered for seemed to vanish into limbo. No official statements were made, but the silence spoke louder than words. The industry had moved on. In less than a year, Rachel Zegler had gone from being the face of Disney's future to a cautionary tale of modern celebrity, how fast admiration can curdle into resentment, and how social media can turn a star into a symbol overnight. What began as a promising chapter in her career had become a running joke across the internet, even immortalized by The Simpsons, which parodied her downfall in an episode titled Snow Woke: The Reimagining. And just when it seemed things couldn't get worse, her personal life entered the spotlight. Her breakup with longtime partner and West Side Story co-star Josh Andres Rivera only added to the spectacle. Once seen as one of Hollywood's rising power couples, the split became tabloid fodder, another chapter in a saga that seemed to grow darker by the week. For Rachel Zegler, Snow White was supposed to be the role that made her a legend. Instead, it became a turning point, a modern Hollywood tragedy about ambition, perception, and the dangers of losing touch with the audience that made you. But in the aftermath of the Snow White premiere, Rachel Zegler's personal life began to unravel right alongside her professional one. Her once promising relationship with West Side Story co-star Josh Andres Rivera reportedly couldn't survive the relentless chaos that surrounded her career. What had started as a Hollywood power couple dynamic, two rising stars sharing the spotlight, quickly buckled under the strain of public scrutiny. Friends close to the pair said that the constant online backlash, the media's obsession with Rachel's every move, and the pressure of navigating a PR crisis together became too much. Between the professional fallout and emotional exhaustion, the relationship quietly fractured. For Rachel, already facing a career in free fall, the heartbreak was another heavy blow. But the breakup didn't stay private for long. It became yet another headline in the ongoing saga of her downfall, feeding the narrative that the young actress's life, once charmed and full of promise, was now spiraling out of control. Just as the dust began to settle, came the moment that every public figure secretly fears. The Simpsons turned her story into satire. In their newest episode, the show unveiled a fictional movie called Snow Woke: The Reimagining, a painfully thinly veiled parody of Rachel Ziegler and the Snow White controversy. The stand-in character, Rachel Z, is a near mirror image, a self-serious actress who rewrites fairy tale lore, bans princes from her kingdom, and lectures bewildered villagers about leadership and equality while her movie bombs in Springfield theaters. The humor is sharp, unapologetic, and brutal. The climax comes when Rachel Z appears on Krusty the Clown's talk show, where she suffers a spectacular on-air breakdown, a pastel pink parody of a celebrity implosion, played for laughs but steeped in tragedy. For Rachel, this wasn't just another internet meme or late-night joke. It was a turning point, a signal that her public collapse had crossed into something deeper: cultural canon. Being mocked by The Simpsons isn't a random jab. It's a pop culture milestone. For decades, the show has reserved its most scathing parodies for figures who've shifted from being simply famous to being infamous, those whose stories have become larger than their work. Politicians, pop icons, and public figures have all been through it. Now, Rachel Zegler joins that hall of infamy not as the heroine she hoped to play, but as a cautionary symbol of Hollywood hubris. For an actress who was once celebrated as the new face of Disney's future, this parody feels like an obituary. Not for her career, but for the version of her that once stood for optimism, youth, and a new generation of storytelling. What began as an opportunity to embody one of cinema's most iconic princesses has become a public dissection of image, ego, and downfall. Still, Hollywood is nothing if not forgiving to those who can reinvent themselves. The industry loves a comeback, and Rachel Ziegler still has time to rewrite her narrative. But the climb will be steep. With the Snow White box office collapse, the shift in public perception, and Disney's chilling silence, her next move can't just be good. It has to be flawless. Because in an industry built entirely on illusion, reputation is everything. And Rachel's, once polished and untouchable, now lies cracked wide open under the spotlight. The question isn't whether she can act, it's whether she can recover. Whether she can reclaim the magic, the humility, and the authenticity that first made people believe in her. The world is watching closely, not out of curiosity, but out of fascination, to see if the fallen princess can find her way back from the mirror, and whether the reflection staring back is still the Snow White she was once meant to be.